Hey brother, welcome back. In this last video about these three prongs, I want to talk to you about prong number 3 of that trident of repairing the sexlessness and intimacy within your long-term relationship. And that prong, if you might recall, is improving the relationship you have with your partner. Now, I saved this one for last because many men believe it's actually the first thing. They believe that their sexless marriage is actually caused by a partner. They have a she problem. And yet many men will stay locked into a relationship for decades despite believing this, believing they have a partner problem, and are just filled with toxic levels of contempt, anger, resentment, bitterness, and so forth. And yet they can't understand, ironically, that while maintaining that kind of internal state towards a partner, why they're not experiencing sexual intimacy and connection. And so it's very important to understand that, yes, this relationship does need to change, but you cannot insist that the partner be the one responsible for that change. And I can tell you right now, if you're a person watching this video and you're saying, well, I've got a partner problem, just stop. You're not the kind of man we want to talk to because you're a victim. And we don't work with victims. We work with heroes who are ready to actually lead themselves. Now, I'm not trying to poke your eye a little bit and make you feel bad. It's just we've seen lots of people repair a sexless marriage, and not a single one of them has done so while holding on to the victimized idea or belief that their partner is at fault. In fact, 100% of the men we have seen turn things around have all been men that have made an internal agreement with themselves to just completely stop focusing on what your partner is doing. And that's really the first point I want to make about one of the ways you need to change your relationship with your partner. Partner aside, it's really not a healthy and vibrant and effective way for any man to live in a way that is focused on how other people should be living their life, including your partner, most of all your partner. Really the only people we have any kind of right to look at and with any form of kind of judgment and belief about how they should be living is our non-adult minor children. Those are the only people in life that we are bestowed the responsibility to look at how they're living and provide guidance, correction, advice, admonishment, and so forth. But outside of that, every time a man focuses on another human adult and how they should be living, he is stepping right into the thick of something we would call judgment. Now, judgment, among other things, is also, like neediness, one of the world's worst aphrodisiacs. It's also a total buzzkill. Now, you might be thinking, but I never actually say anything. This is all happening inside of me. I can tell you from 31 plus years of relationship that the woman in your life, though she might not be able to know the words you're thinking, absolutely knows the attitude and the disposition you have towards her. And so you can't just walk around as a man in a state of judgment and contempt and animosity and resentment and have her just have no idea that you feel those things. She'll feel that. She'll feel that gaze. She'll see it in your body language. She'll know that you basically blame her, that you see her as broken, as not operating appropriately, as being in the wrong, etc. And all of that, brother, is off-putting. Why on earth would a woman want to be intimate and connected with a man who sees her through such a terrible light? And so the very first things we need to start putting away as men, if we want to have a better sense of intimacy and connection, is we have to put away the gaze, the laser focus we have on what other people are doing, what our spouse is doing, what they're not doing. We must stop judging them. And I'm talking full stop. You must stop judging your spouse. You're not qualified to be their judge, right? And when we judge other people, we are actually taking really a position that's way above our pay grade, as though we are uniquely qualified among the 105 billion humans who have lived to say how they should be living their life. And that can't produce anything but a sense of disconnection. In fact, everywhere we judge, we disconnect. When you judge yourself, you disconnect with yourself. When you judge your wife, you disconnect from your wife. When you judge your neighbor, you disconnect with your neighbor. This pattern is very easy to see. And so if you're disconnected from somebody in your life, let's talk about your partner right now in a sexless, no intimacy marriage, you're judging her. I guarantee you're judging her. You might not be aware of it, but in your mind, you're sitting there saying, why'd she do that? Why is she on her phone? Why is she using her time like that? Judgment. It's all the belief that you have a better idea about how she should live her life than she does. And until you stop that judgment, you will not improve a sexless relationship. Now, the next thing you need to do is put away blame, and it's related to this. Now, a lot of people can't stand this because the brain, the ego, has to ascribe blame to somebody. And the reason an immature ego has to do that is because of insecurity. It goes back to that first prong, the relationship you have with yourself. When we are immature humans, we live in our heads, we live in our ego. And the ego cannot tolerate being thought poorly of. It can't tolerate somebody perhaps potentially believing the wrong things about me. And so it feels this immense need to argue, to defend, to set the record straight. And part of that is blame. And so it can't stand to have anything going on in the relationship without blaming. And it always blames someone else because the ego is never responsible for itself. And so you got to put away this childish immaturity in the form of blaming. You want an intimacy and connection? Stop blaming. Okay? And instead replace it with something else. It's far superior. And that is ownership, agency, and personal responsibility. Now, blame looks backwards, and that's one of the reasons it's totally useless. When you look backwards at what happened and you assign blame, you get absolutely nothing for it other than the ability to try to make someone else responsible for something that you want, need, and desire, and it will fail you every time. A better and superior way, and a way that works with mature men to create intimacy, connection, vibrancy, depth, and intimacy is to start taking ownership and responsibility for your life. Where do you want to go? How will you take yourself there? And so ownership is this process of saying, you know what, I'm going to start farming out. I'm going to stop farming out and delegating these things that are important to me to other people. I'm going to stop expecting other people to live their lives to serve my desires. That's a dumb idea. Why on earth would other people live to serve my needs? Was that why they were born? Were you born to serve other people's needs, or were you born to live out your own life, right? And so ownership in men is this process of realizing all the places you're waiting for other people to show up as a hero in your life and give you what you want, need, and desire. And instead, you become self-reliant and you start taking responsibility, ownership, and agency for bringing those things about instead. Now, we can't get super deep in this video about that. I know you have lots of questions about that. Men always say, well, how do I own sex? I can't give myself sex. You can't, but you can give yourself connection and the intimacy, the real reasons that you want sex. And that takes a lot more to talk about than we can talk about in this video. Nevertheless, you can't wait until you understand that to operate in it. You need to start taking ownership today. And if you will not take ownership and let go of blame, and you will not take the responsibility for yourself, you're going to stay disconnected. You're going to experience really no intimacy, and you're going to be irritated. You're going to be unhappy. You're going to be filled with the same toxic emotions, and you're going to live out your days in this relationship in that state. Now, what else do you need to change in your relationship with your partner? Well, all those negative emotions I was talking about there, because we carry them forward from our immature child days, they make us basically decide oftentimes to be cold. I'm hurt. She won't give to me. She's not doing this. She's not that. We call it the she's not virus, right? All these she's nots turn our hearts cold, and we say, fine, I'm gonna be cold to you. You're being cold to me. You're not giving me what I want. I'm gonna be cold to you. And you got to put that away. That's just straight up childish immaturity. I'm going to take my ball and go home because they're not playing nicely. It's the same stuff we learn in the playground in kindergarten and has no place in a mature relationship as adults. And so we have to put away the coldness and we have to replace that with warmth. Now, I probably will do a whole video on this, but the only way to do that is to put away the system that leads us to this coldness, which is a transactional regard system. It's a system that says, I'll only love you when you do nice things to me. That's not love at all. That's a contract. And this is exactly how the vast majority of people start and maintain a marriage relationship. It's contractual. If I give you a roof over your head, if I give you a steady, safe, secure financial income, well, then you're supposed to give me, 3 meals a day, do my laundry, and make me sexually satisfied. That is a BS narrative. That doesn't produce happiness, connection, and intimacy in anybody. It's essentially a really robust and elaborate form of indentured servitude, or even worse, a prostitution. And that's exactly how a woman will feel on that. And she'll say, you know what, I'm tired of feeling this yucky feeling like you expect me to just be sexually intimate because you're somehow entitled by going to work every day. Well, guess what? If you're a single man and you're not in a relationship with a partner and you don't have a spouse, you still have to get up every day. You still have to go to work. You still need shelter. You still need to eat. And so you don't deserve sexual intimacy from another person simply because you get up and do what adults have to do around the world every day. That's a dumb idea. And until you put that idea away that you deserve sex simply because you said I do, and because you do the things adults do every day, you're not going to have those things. That's just being immature. And so when you put that transactional system away, that you earn a woman's love, affection, respect, appreciation, kindness, and affection and sexual attention by things you do, then you're going to be cold. And that coldness is working against you, because a woman wants to feel warmth. She wants to feel a man's like white hot fire in his heart for life, for himself, and a vigor about everything that he's about. She doesn't want to feel this contractual way that some men can be, that like, hey, I'll only show you kindness and appreciation when you show me a certain amount of sexual attention. Those kind of guys, you know what, that might get you in a dating relationship that you're not going to be a long-term, happily married, deeply connected, passionate man with that kind of system. Show me one. I'll recant if you can show me just one man on planet Earth who is living in this deeply connected way, who's getting there by this kind of transactional system. It doesn't work. It's the domain of immature people, and you want to get out of that as soon as you can. And that's something we're very capable of showing you how to do that. The next thing you need to do is replace contempt. And you have to replace that with forgiveness. Forgiveness is an act of humility that says, it doesn't say what you did is okay. It just is releasing yourself from the emotional toxicity of holding on to that hurt. And so contempt is like, you taking poison and expecting someone else to become ill, right? So when we take in contempt, we're actually just dealing really with our own self-hatred and contempt, and it hurts us. It doesn't hurt the other person. So forgiveness is really about letting that wash through us. It's about letting go of those toxic feelings about other people. And that comes with letting go of blame, letting go of judgment, letting go of coldness, and instead replacing that with just forgiveness, saying, you know what, instead of being focused on what happened, how do we get here, I'm just going to let it go. I don't get anything for focusing on hurt or somebody hurting me. And so I'm going to learn to forgive. And the first person you have to forgive is you. And then when you forgive yourself, it's kind of easy to forgive other people. After letting go of contempt and learn to forgive, you need to replace in your relationship with the woman this following passive, indecisive, abdicating way you have with leading. You need to learn to lead yourself. You need to learn to lead the relationship. Now, I'll be really clear here, because there's going to be like the feminist sorts who take issue with this. When we talk about leading, we are not talking about being in charge. I am the leader in my relationship with my wife, Zelda, and I have been for 31 years, but I am not in charge of Zelda. We are equals. Leading means going first. That doesn't mean going first is an act of privilege. It means when there's something hard to do, when there's something unpleasant to do, I'm going to go first. Leadership is about doing the hard things, the necessary things first, as being the one who's going to take ownership and responsibility for making sure that the relationship heads in a positive way. Now, I don't That doesn't mean I do things against her will. It doesn't mean I drag her kicking and screaming. It means that I am going to be the torch keeper for the health and well-being of our relationship. And if that means I've got to eat humble pie, or anybody's got to eat humble pie, it's going to be me first, right? And if we don't lead, we're asking fundamentally our partner to lead. And despite somebody's political point of view and whatnot, when a woman feels like you're waiting for her to lead the relationship, specifically with intimacy and connection and things like kindness and regard for one another, it creates lots of venom, lots of resentment. It causes her to lose respect and appreciation for you, because regardless, again, of her political ideology, usually innately and deeply within, she believes that you should do that stuff, and you should. And you'll feel the best when you do. So replace your abdication and that waiting with leading. Part of leading is initiating difficult conversations, initiating difficult actions, initiating sometimes even the dissolution of a relationship if it need be. Lead, lead, lead. Stop waiting, start leading. The next thing is to replace inaction, and this is kind of related to that. And that inaction is really just part of the cloak of behavior a man in a sexless marriage tends to put on. It's part of the waiting posture. He's waiting for his partner to do the action. When is she going to take action for us to have sex again, right? And he says all the time to these kind of guys and calls with us, well, she said she didn't want to have sex again, so I handed it over to her, and she's never said she wanted to be intimate again, so I'm waiting. It's her move, right? They see it like chess. It doesn't work that way. And so inaction is inaction. And there's not an excuse for a man to live with inaction. No matter how you want to justify your inaction is your responsibility. It's your problem. And I'm not saying these things to you in a judgmental, critiquing way, but in a way that attempts to help you see soberly that your inaction is your issue. And until you take ownership for it, like we talked about a minute ago, you're going to suffer the disconnection that you have now. And so you need to replace that inaction with calm, deliberate action. Now, I've given you a lot of things. I want you to think about those things. And if you want to find out more, I invite you to scroll down. You'll see a description below with a link. Click that link to set up a call with me, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.